Thank you. So the topic of the next lecture is I-squared threshold logic. Okay. Now before I go to that, I will once again remind you the following points in connection with the layout which I drew in the last class. One is by mistake I wrote that this is emitter. This is emitter diffusion and this is emitter contact. Actually it is collector and collector contact. I told you repeatedly earlier that I-squared transistors work in the inverse mode. The emitter-collector role is interchanged. So this is to be important, one thing. Second thing I should like to mention is that you see that while designing all these things, I have taken care such that the crossovers are practically, there is no crossover in this simplistic design. But anyway, in a large design, large circuit design, I have to see that the number of crossovers is minimum, okay? But in this case, have you seen one thing I have done? In this 3 transistors, which are multi-collector transistors, I have kept a small gap here. I have kept a small gap here. Why? Simply because to allow crossing without much difficulty. Another thing is, this distance, I have made a distribution of the injector well like this, but this transistor and this transistor, they are getting injection not only from the sides, but also from the broad side. With the narrow side, holes are being injected in this direction, but also in this direction, For transistors T1 and T10, there is lateral injection from the sides. And somebody was asking me just after the last class that some problems regarding if you go on increasing the number of collectors, if you make the transistor, the entire base too long, what might be the problem? You see that I told you that this entire base of the vertical transistor is behaving as the collector of the lateral PNP transistor. That should be kept in mind. The entire base of the transistor, the vertical transistors, is behaving as the common collector of the lateral PNP transistor. Okay? Therefore, this part of the base and this part of the base should behave identically, but that will not actually happen. The holes are being injected from here, from the side, and by recombination, they will gradually be lost as you go away from these collectors. So what is to be done for that? Normally what is done, in the design there is a thumb rule as well as it is based on some analytical formula, that as you go away from the injector, you increase the collector area using a certain design rule. The collectors in proximity or the closest to, nearest to the injector should have the minimum area, whereas as you go away from that region, say the collector here should have a little bit higher, larger area to account for the problem which is occurring because of the loss of holes as they travel down this thing. This is one approach. But this is normally, this kind of I-squared structure is called FIN structure. FIN, F-I-N, FIN structure. There is an injector like this, and on either side you have got the transistors. But if suppose the transistors have too many collectors, each transistor has got too many collectors, it is very common in, say, in realization of I-squared decoders. I will ask you to take up this problem. Design an I-squared 3-bit decoder or 4-bit decoder. Take help of Shilvan and Tau's book. In Shilvan and Tau's Pulse and Digital Circuit, the old book, you see the I-squared section. There, this decoder has been, and you'll find there is a great advantage of using multiple collectors for designing decoder circuits. You'll find there are 8 decoders have been used. 8 collectors which have been used on each transistor. Number may be 16, number may be 32, depending on your design. And in that case, what will be the problem? Do you think that if you feed holes from one side, it will work? It will not work. So in that case, what kind of design you have to incorporate? You have to incorporate a design something like this. That means your This is the injector. You have to have the injector with a fin structure. We have to have the injector, which is a P plus diffuse region with an injector, with a fin structure. Then you have the so-called bases in between. In that case, what will be the advantage? Whatever may be the number of collector doesn't, because you are getting injection from the side, in addition to whatever is happening from the edge. In that case, even if you have a large number of collectors, there will be no problem. Do you understand? So what I have done, I have designed the P plus diffuse region in such a way that it propagates everywhere in the form of fin structure. And between the fins, you place your transistor base, vertical transistor base, with a very small separation. This separation should be small enough to cause a lot of hole injection. So what will happen as a result? Holes from the P plus injector will be injected laterally, illuminating the whole base uniformly, irradiating the whole base uniformly. In that case, there will be no problem. There is no need of collector area scaling. In the earlier case, you really need a collector area scaling. As you go away from this injector, the collector area should be a little bit increased, following a certain design rule. Okay? But in this case, that is not it. What is the bad thing of it? Area. It will take a lot of area. Therefore, in most cases, whenever you are, if your number of transistors collectors is limited to 4 or 5, don't use this structure. But as soon as your number exceeds a certain value, say 5 or 6, then you have to go for this kind of design. Particularly for decoder circuits, you take the TC, Millman and Tau and Schilling's book in the I2L section. I think it is available in the diode transistor logic chapter. I2L is diode transistor RTL chapter. Somewhere you please see, and you will find that there is a discussion on I2L, small, very brief discussion on I2L, and just one example of how I2L can be used for realizing decoder circuit. And you will find they are the actual use of the multi-corrector transistors. Okay? Please see it. Now, I shall start the topic which is called I2L threshold logic. So before I start the topic of I2L threshold logic, I should once again mention the basic drawback of I2L circuit. What is the basic drawback of I2L circuit? It is a circuit and it is a logic which works in hard saturation. IB and IC are equal when the transistor is on. Means the transistor is heavily saturated. That means it suffers from maximum storage effect. The storage time will be the highest in I2L compared to other logics. This is never done even in TTL. Do you think that TTL will make IC and IB the same? Never. There is always a thumb rule. Typically, the IC should be around 5 to 10 times IB in TTL. Though the low frequency gain, small signal gain may be around 50 to 100. That is the thumb rule for I2L. Or for the TTL or other kind of saturation logic. Now, one thing, you can do one very simple thing to reduce the storage effect, and that is by the use of feedback. Simply by the use of feedback. What you do, suppose this is an I2L circuit, transistor. Of all the collectors, let me show this in details. This is the more or less this transistor, whatever I have shown here. This collector has got the minimum, it's very, very small area compared to it is a small fraction. The area of this collector, if I call it C1, C2, C3, C4. So these are the C1, C2, and C4. C1 has got the very small fraction. The area of C1 is a very small fraction of C2, C3, and C4. That of C2, C3, and C4. Then what you do, this collector you simply connect with the base. This is a feedback, voltage shunt feedback, so-called voltage shunt feedback. Only one collector, not the other. Others are available for normal logic operations. C2 to C4, they are available for normal logic operations. Only C1, which is the smallest area collector, very small, is directly shorted with the base. What is going to happen now? Suppose this transistor is on. That means this transistor and this side is off. You know, it is coming from another transistor. Suppose this side is off. The whole I will now go into this path. Injector current will be fully diverted into the base of this, but now it is a shunt feedback. Some fraction of that X will now be fed back to the collector. It is a negative feedback case. So this will be simply X into I. X is a fraction. And in that case, this current will be simply 1 minus X into I. So, and because this, suppose now this path, this goes to another transistor, another I square L transistor. Supplying the same injector current I. Okay, so each of the collectors have different choices. So for example, in a particular circuit, suppose the C3 is connected to another such I square L circuit, I square L inverter. Okay, and you know that each base is again fed by the same injector current I. All right, and suppose this transistor is also off. Now, sorry. Then what is happening? Because you are sending the base current, this transistor will become on now. And you remember that in that case, the whole I will be drawn into this path. You remember that? Because this transistor will be practically off. As soon as the current voltage here falls reasonably below that 0.6 volt, cut-in voltage, the current drawn by the base is negligible. Negligible, and the whole current will go into the collector C3. This is nothing but our C3. So what is the IC by IB ratio in this particular case? What is IB now? It is not I. It is 1 minus X into I. But the collector current is I. So your IC by IB ratio is reasonably higher now. If X is equal to, for example, I design in such a way that X is equal to 0.9, the heavy feedback case. And that will happen. You can see that even if you make the collector small, the collector current, due to we have a because small signal beta, small injection beta of the transistor will be quite high compared to the large signal one. So what will happen? This, as you short circuit the collector and the base, in spite of the fact that this collector is extremely small in area, it will take most of this I. Not full of the I, most of the I. Maybe X is equal to 0.9 or if X is equal to 0.9, then what is the value of 1 minus X? 0.1. So what is the beta, effective beta value? Then IC by 10. So in that case, what will happen? You are working in such a way that this transistor, when on, is not heavily saturated. In fact, it is close to the linear or active region. And that will result in higher speed. But what will the bad effect? A smaller voltage swing and higher power dissipation. Both I am sure you are understanding that. if you don't allow the transistor to saturate, across the transistor Vc will be large. So I into Vc is the power dissipation in the transistor. So two things, you have gained speed, you have achieved a higher speed at the expense of two things. One is power dissipation, and two is noise merging and voltage swing, logic swing. Okay? Now, this was a popular approach in the very beginning to enhance the I2L speed, I2L logic speed, this kind of negative feedback by using a very small collector and feeding it back to the base was a common practice. But though you know that there is a little bit more power dissipation and there is a little bit, it's a worse type of, you know, that the noise margin, but anyway, you can make a trade-off to improve the performance, and that was done. But in doing so, a very nice thing was observed. Some people found, suppose I make all that, normally all the collectors have got the same area, or a little bit different as you remember, as you go away. But for simplicity, we can assume all the collectors are practically have the same area. Suppose now one of the collectors simply connected to the base, what is going to happen? And they found a very fantastic thing taking place. Let us see what is it. Now suppose, instead of doing the so-called negative feedback for reducing the delay, for improving the speed, just by playing, you know, that people have got that habit. You know, once you have a fabrication process or some kind of tools you have, you can always do something. And in fact, that was, some people, you can think that some people did it with motivation, because he perhaps has theoretically worked out some fantastic thing and did it, or some people otherwise could do it just, let us see what happens. And in both ways they found there is a lot of advantage in it. And then came the I2L, that current mirror concept. It's called I2L current mirror. What do you do? Simply, as I told you, no question of any scaling the area. Simply you short one of these things. In that case, what is going to happen? Say when this transistor here is off, as I told you, the I will be fully diverted into this path. Okay? And in that case, what will be this I, this current? I dash, or you can get the feedback current, IF, what will be its value? Because you have maintained the same collector, practically the whole current will be fed back. That happens. The collector current normally in a transistor is usually much larger than the base current, because IC by IB ratio is a beta. If you design your transistor in such a way that beta is, of course, it is I2L design with a beta around 50 is difficult. Suppose by a lot of design methodology, I have designed the I2L with the basic beta value. Beta up, inverse mode beta is 30. So IC, if I work the transistor in active region, what will be the IC by IB ratio? 30, because my beta is 30. So if I work in the active region, that means for very small base current, then IC by IB ratio will be 30. This is confirmed. So in that case, what is going to happen? Suppose the whole, one of the common collectors, the same area, just connected to the I. This current IF will be beta times IB, this being IB. Beta is the small signal beta. Small signal DC beta or AC beta, whatever you call it, which is 30. I am assuming that beta is 30 in a good design, and that is a must. For current mirrors, the I2L should be designed with as high as possible value of upward beta. So what is going to happen now? Because IB is very small compared to IC, practically IF, therefore, practically equal to I. Base current will be negligible, 1/30th of IC. So this is nothing but your so-called, and that is your IC. IF is equal to IF, I have called it feedback current. That is also the collector current. IF is also the collector current, and that is equal to, practically equal to I. Because IB will be a negligible fraction, only 1/30th in this particular case, 1/30th of, since IB is equal to 1 by beta naught times IC, which is, I am assuming, negligible compared to IC, which is negligible because beta naught is reasonably high, assuming beta naught is much larger than 1. Around 30, which is not a very, very difficult job, can be done with proper realization. In that case, what will be the current in the other collectors? You please see that IC is equal to I. This is a very important thing. This IC is equal to, now I call it I injector. This is I injector. IC is equal to I injector. And what will be this current? But I injector always, earlier also it was I injector. Earlier, always whenever we speak of I square L, I say that this current will be I injector. Why? Why it is I injector? Because the current source which I connect here can supply only I injector. That is how I have designed, you remember. I have designed all these things equal. This width and this separation, the same for all the transistors. Therefore, I injector will be the same for all the transistors. That is my design parameter. But if I do not adhere to that rule, suppose the transistor which I have connected here can supply twice of I injector. That means this overlap is twice that of this transistor, of the other transistors. Then what will happen? Here it can supply twice I injector. But when this transistor is on, can it draw the twice injector current? You see that this transistor is getting now on. It should be theoretically able to sink any current till it goes out of saturation. Am I correct? But in this case, the design is such that it will draw only I injector and not more than that. So the remaining current will go to the base, other base. That means suppose now I connect here, that is a very interesting thing, is go to the other base. And suppose this current has been designed for 2 I injector. This is I injector, but this has been designed for twice I injector, simply by increasing the overlap length. Okay? In that case, what will be this current and what will be this current? This will be only I injector. And then the remaining current I injector will be passing and will turn this device on. Which is normally not the situation. In earlier situation, you remember, somehow if this transistor is on, this transistor must be off. In ordinary conventional I square L design. As soon as this is on, the whole injector, I injector is sunk by it, and nothing goes to the base, so the other transistor gets off. But this is not the situation here. Suppose I design it with exactly I injector, then what will be the status of this transistor? Off. Suppose I design it with 0.5 I injector, what will be the status of this transistor? Off. Therefore, you see that if I design a current source here, which is more than I injector, reasonably more of course, reasonably more than I injector, this transistor will turn on when this is on, or remain on, or turn on, whatever you call it, it will remain on, because this current is otherwise always flowing through it. By the action of this transistor state is not changing in that case. On the other hand, if I design it for a smaller current, Then, so these are very interesting. We shall see that if this approach of current, this is what is called current mirror, because whatever current you are delivering to the base, exactly that much amount of current is being sent to the base, means not to the base, to the input. Don't get confused. Whatever current you are supplied to the input of this inverter, exactly the same current it sinks at the collector. That is why it is called current mirror. It draws that much current, it draws that much current from input, similarly it does same amount of current from the output. So this is a nice thing, and based on this principle, one can realize the I square L threshold logic, which I want to discuss within a few minutes. I think you know that all the definition of the threshold logic, that suppose X, there is a set of variables, binary variables, and f(x) is a simple function of an algebraic function of x1, x2, etc. It is something like the a1 x1 plus a2 x2, etc. Then the Boolean function of x, the set of these are x1, x2 are all binary variables. It's a set of, so Boolean function of the set x is 1. That is the definition. If this f(x), which is the weighted sum of these variables, is greater than equal to a certain threshold, which is called threshold value, that you can set yourself. Okay, and this is equal to 0 if f(x) is less than k. Based on this, so what is that? This is called, actually this is a basic definition of threshold logic. That means if you have a Boolean function of a set of binary variables, then this function is 1 when another algebraic function constituted by x1, x2, etc., by weighting them properly, is above a certain value and is 0 otherwise. Okay? Using this very basic principle, one can realize so-called all threshold logics with an eye to minimize. Please remember, everything is done to minimize the logic. Optimize the logic operation. So, for example, I will show you a typical case for I square L threshold logic for adder. Very simple. Adder circuit. Adder. Very interesting circuit. Same logic expression, whatever I have used in earlier for the summers, this ADA realization, same thing have been used here. Same thing, exactly the same thing. But the important, nice thing is to produce this function. The technique of producing the OR function, and what is this function called? Forgetting. There is a name for it. What is it called? AB plus AC plus BC? Huh? There is another name for it. What kind of? This kind of combination is called, I forget. Huh? Majority function, right. And the other one is ABCI, the AND. Or this one and this one. I want to produce these three functions. In physiology, you see, it is very simple. What I have done, you see that, have you noted down the values of the current sources? These three current sources I have written, one means some magnitude, which is say I naught. By one, it may mean some I naught, a unit current. Okay, this is half of that I naught. This is 1.5 times that I naught. This is 2.5 times that I naught. Whereas these are again that same I naught. One thing was asked by me by some of you in some earlier class. I'm sure I did not mean. What happens to the output? This is floating collector. Will it work like this? I square L, I always show the output like this. There is no power supply connected. Will it really work like this? What has to be done now? This is actually the internal intrinsic part of the circuit. If you want to actually take it out, you have to pass it through a buffer. And there is always, this thing is always there. Please don't forget that. This is there. And that is also one in this particular case. Even the output side also, whatever circuit I have drawn, in the output also there is a current source. I cannot directly take this output. If you just directly take it, it will not work properly. I must pass it through some source follower or emitter follower buffer to get the actual output. Otherwise, I will be in trouble. Please remember this. This output, which I show as just floating, is not floating like this. This thing is always there. Don't forget that. If I want to take the actual output to the outside world, I have to pass it either through a buffer or to a level translator to make it TTL compatible or whatever you like. This is not TTL compatible, or it is not, may not be MOS compatible. So I have to put a buffer here, which not only makes a amplification or kind of the input impedance is very high, output impedance is low as happens, and secondly it also translates the voltage levels. That can be done by using diodes and other transistors. There are various ways of translating called voltage level translators. Now question is how this is produced. Can you tell me now? These three transistors here, these are the only three transistors where I have applied feedback. I have not used feedback in other transistors, you just see. So these are actually current mirrors. That means when this A is low, that means the transistor here is off. The current one will be inputted to the base of, not inputted to this gate, to this inverter, and each collector can draw not more than 1 unit of current. It will draw, normally it will have a tendency to draw that 1 unit current, not more than that. But here what is the value given? The current source is so designed that it can deliver only 50% of that current. So what is going to happen now? Can you tell me how this A plus B plus C is produced here at this collector? Simply, it's very simple. Now look here. What I have done, this is some other collectors I have just coupled them. Now it is 1.5, not 0.5, and you get the majority function generated. Is it all right? I think it is quite all right for you to understand how it works. Then come to the third one. Now the current source is 2.5. That means here it is something between 0 and 1. Do you follow? Do you think that if I put it 1, it is quite all right? Suppose I design it 1. 1. If there is a little error in fabrication, This may be little bit more than 1 and this will be malfunctioning. Therefore, I want to keep safe. I design it 50% of that. Exactly like that, here between 1 and 2, and not 1, not 2, but 1.5, like this. If there is a little error, does not matter. Some 10% error, nothing is going to matter. Similarly, when you produce 2.5, you produce n function. Is it okay? It is 2.5 and you get the n function generated here. All right? If you have any problem, you can discuss. The time is almost up. You can discuss with me afterward. It is very simple. Rather, there is nothing. So, you say how simply you can generate the 3 functions, or majority function and ABC, the AND function, so easily with the help of the threshold logic principle. Then you do this part is ordinary I square. This part is ordinary I square. One thing, please remember that suppose I have used it for 4 here, 4 times this current source. What will happen? It will have got this, because these transistors, they get, what will happen in that case? Suppose these current mirrors are not there. Suppose all these feedbacks are removed and I have put 4 here. What is going to happen? Any transistor can sing that in the full current 4. Only thing is it may be overheated and all these problems. In order to avoid that, normal design, I assume that everything is fed by I, just I injected. But in that case, therefore, this feedback really is serving a magic. Just putting this feedback, this thing cannot draw more than 1. Please, each transistor cannot draw, it will draw 0.5, any value less than 1, but never more than 1. This is the current mirror principle. And then you see that I have done exactly the same thing which I did earlier. You see that this is a wired ending, this one and this one being ANDed, and to produce the S function. And actually that output is to be taken by buffering it. Please remember, through an emitter follower kind of buffer. Or an inverter, then you will produce S bar. Then CO also, straight forward you should not take. Any I square L, straight forward you never take the output. It must be passed through a buffer, a source emitter follower buffer. You take the, if you are interested to get exactly the same without non-inverted one, but emitter follower sometimes poses some problems. As you know that the asymmetric charging and discharging sometimes takes place. But the other function, have you understood why I have made other things are all 1? If they are all 2, would they have worked? Suppose if all of them were designed with 2, no problem. No problem. But why unnecessarily waste current? So I designed it 1. So this is an example of the I square L added circuit, and I think that with that I will stop today.